What if I told you that the fruit you believe is keeping you strong is quietly stealing the strength from your legs? Picture this. An older man, once a builder of homes, a keeper of gardens, now stands at the foot of his own staircase, staring up, not with confidence but calculation. His knees ache not with injury, but with something less obvious, something gradual. The first step feels steeper than it should. The railing becomes not just support, but a necessity. And the climb, once mindless, now asks permission from every bone and joint. He eats well, he walks daily, he follows the rules passed down from the era of food pyramids and farmers' markets. His kitchen overflows with fruit, bright, colorful, natural. But even nature, when misunderstood, can betray. It's not what he's not doing that's the issue. It's what he's doing daily, faithfully, lovingly, without knowing. And it's not just him. This quiet sabotage lives in homes across the world, where elders trust their fruit bowls more than their medicine cabinets, because they were taught to. But here lies the paradox. Not all fruit is friendly to the aging body. As we enter our 6th and 7th decades, the internal landscape changes. Veins that once flowed freely now narrow. Joints that danced with ease now whisper with inflammation. And blood sugar, once a silent servant, turns into a volatile guest. The sweetness we trusted in youth can, in age, become the spark that lights a slow-burning fire inside our legs. This truth is not popular. It's not printed on the grocery store signs next to the heart-healthy labels. But it is real, and sometimes it takes pain, the kind that creeps into your calves after a short walk, the dull pull in your thighs after a morning of standing, to make us listen. Today, that truth will be spoken. Because if your legs are your freedom, and they are, then what we feed them is sacred. You deserve to know which 7 fruits are robbing you of strength. Not all at once, not violently, but gently, persistently, like a tide pulling back the shoreline. So before we begin, a gentle reminder. If this message touches a part of you, if you feel the weight of every step growing heavier each season, click subscribe. Not for us, but for your future. Because the more you know, the stronger you stay. And in a world of noise, your awareness is your greatest ally. Let's begin where most wouldn't dare, with pineapple. Tropical, golden, inviting. It slices clean, it tastes alive. Rich in bromelain, a natural enzyme praised for its anti-inflammatory properties. It's no wonder that so many seniors begin their morning with a wedge or two, believing it will soothe their aches. But this fruit hides its edge in sweetness and acid. Beneath the surface, pineapple delivers a powerful punch of natural sugar, fast-absorbing and volatile. For an older body, that means one thing: blood sugar spikes, and when sugar rises quickly, insulin rushes to respond. But aging tissues don't absorb like they once did. The result? That excess sugar lingers in the bloodstream, damaging the fine capillaries in the legs, reducing oxygen delivery, and sowing the seeds of stiffness and fatigue. Over time, you may not trace the discomfort back to that juicy slice. The fatigue after standing, the heaviness in your knees, the odd tingling in your calves. These symptoms don't scream pineapple, but the damage is cumulative, silent. Day by day, the circulation to your legs falters. Swelling begins to form. Recovery slows. You wake one day not weaker, but less you. And there's more. Pineapple's acidity, while gentle on the tongue, is cruel to inflamed joints. For seniors living with arthritis, or simply the aches of aging, that acid becomes fuel for the fire. What once was a minor twinge in the knee becomes a persistent, burning ache. Ankles grow tender. Hips refuse the ease they once offered. Even medications can clash. Bromelain, the very enzyme that gives pineapple its healing reputation, can dangerously interact with blood thinners and other common prescriptions, intensifying or dulling their effects unpredictably. But perhaps the most dangerous part of pineapple isn't chemical, it's cultural. You were told it's healthy, you were told fruit never harms, so you trust it again and again until one day your body quietly revolts. Yet pineapple is only the beginning. There is another fruit, soft, comforting, praised for its potassium, that may be next in line to deceive you. The yellow curve of a banana rests in the builder's hand like a familiar tool, simple, dependable, praised by generations of trainers and doctors alike. In childhood, that mellow sweetness meant after-school energy. In middle age, it fueled weekend hikes. Now, in the afternoon hush of retirement, the same fruit feels like a promise of relief from cramps and nighttime Charlie horses. Potassium, they say, keeps muscles supple, so the man peels and devours, confident he is honoring his body. Yet within moments, the quiet engines of metabolism rouse and stumble. The banana's sugars rush into the bloodstream with almost reckless speed. In youth, quick sugars once burned clean. In age, they collect like thick fog along narrowing vessels. Insulin surges, desperate to shepherd glucose into tired cells. Yet those cells resist, as though shutters have been drawn. What remains adrift in the blood corrodes delicate capillaries, especially the thread-like channels that feed calves and feet. The first warning is not sharp pain, but a vague heaviness in the shins, an odd pressure behind the knees when rising from a chair. Potassium itself, paradoxically helpful, now pairs with the body's waning ability to balance fluids. The mineral signals for water to stay, and water obeys. Ankles puff softly, then stubbornly. Shoes tighten by early evening. Wedding rings feel foreign. Beneath the skin, swollen tissues press against nerves, turning each step into a muffled protest. Climbing stairs becomes a negotiation between purpose and discomfort. The builder, stoic by nature, adjusts. He loosens laces, rests longer between errands, tells loved ones, it's just the years catching up. Yet on nights when moonlight pools across the bedroom floor, sudden cramps seize his calves like coiled metal springs. He grips the sheets, breath shallow, praying the knot will release. Minutes crawl. When the muscle finally unlocks, fatigue echoes through bone and tendon as though a storm has passed. All the while, the quiet culprit sits atop countless kitchen counters, bright and benevolent. Few elders suspect that the fruit synonymous with vitality may be nurturing inflammation. Bananas raise uric acid subtly, especially when kidneys grow less efficient with age. That acid pools in joints, sharpening edges that were once smooth glides. Hips pulse after gentle walks. A dull burn gathers beneath kneecaps, daring the mind to remember a time when walking was silent and free. Even small daily comforts, morning tea, a favorite detective novel, cannot distract from the creeping certainty. Something cherished is amiss, and so a seed of doubt takes root. Could familiar habits, accepted without question, be the architect of this slow weakening? For those listening now, consider the banana not as foe, but as teacher. Its lesson is simple. The body that has carried life's memories deserves foods matching its current rhythm, not yesterday's tempo. When you choose wisely, every ligament, every tendon, every step thanks you in quiet ways. Lighter ankles at dusk, fewer midnight cramps, renewed courage to explore the sidewalk beyond the mailbox. The builder senses possibility in this realization, a path back to steadier mornings, to stairs climbed without pause. Yet another fruit, small enough to fit in a palm and beloved for heart health, lurks on the horizon with a sweetness that hides a very different danger. The grapes glisten in their glass bowl, sun catching their translucent skins like stained glass in a quiet chapel. Their size makes them innocent. Just a bite, just a handful. No knife, no preparation. They pop easily into the mouth, one after another, like sweet pearls. For the man, they are a habit, not a meal. Something to nibble while reading, or during commercials, or as a bedtime treat when the house is hushed. But within their delicate skins lies a sharper truth. Grapes are not the harmless morsels they seem, especially not for the aging body. Fructose, their dominant sugar, bypasses the careful regulation of blood sugar pathways. It heads straight to the liver, and there it wreaks its quiet havoc. For seniors whose metabolic fire has dimmed with the decades, this fructose is quickly converted into fat and uric acid. That uric acid becomes a trespasser in the joints, gathering in toes, ankles, knees, familiar places of motion and memory. The result is subtle at first, a sting in the big toe while climbing into bed, a strange tightness in the calves after morning stretches. Then, like water wearing away stone, the symptoms grow. An invisible weight pulls down on each step. The man pauses longer at corners, pretending to admire a flower, when truly he's waiting for his knees to catch up with his breath. He never blames the grapes. How could he? They are heart-healthy, full of antioxidants, rich in resveratrol. That's what the magazines say. That's what the doctors once said. But they didn't explain the danger of overindulgence. Grapes are too easy to eat. A handful becomes two. A bowl disappears without notice, and the fructose accumulates silently. Inflammation follows. Not the roaring kind that sends one to the doctor, but the whispering kind that lingers in the tissues, especially those already strained by age. Stiffness in the morning becomes the norm. Shoes feel tighter without change in size. Walks grow shorter, more careful. The man begins to scan the sidewalk for cracks, fearing a misstep he wouldn't have noticed a decade ago. Worse still, fructose feeds chronic inflammation not just in the joints, but throughout the body. It thickens blood, strains vessels, and slowly, almost imperceptibly, weakens the foundation of one's mobility. The very sweetness that delighted his palate now sabotages his stride. He reflects one quiet evening as he massages his ankle under the table. What has changed? Not his spirit. He still longs to walk the hills behind his house. Not his resolve. He rises every morning with hope. But something in his legs whispers of betrayal, and the grapes sit there still, a little less magical now. But the lesson is not one of fear. It is of awakening. Even the smallest habits can carry great weight. Even the sweetest things must be seen with clarity. And once known, the body's whispers can become a map back to strength. Yet this lesson is not complete. For there is another fruit, cool, watery, refreshing, that hides its betrayal behind the illusion of hydration. A summer favorite, a picnic staple, it is praised for being light. But its sugar strikes harder than many expect. The orange sits radiant on the counter, its citrus scent curling through the air like morning sunlight. It promises vitality, vitamin C, immunity, clarity. For decades, the man believed in this ritual. A glass of orange juice with breakfast, a wedge after lunch, maybe a segment or two while reading the paper. It felt right. It felt healthy. It felt safe. But safety, too, changes with age. Beneath the bright skin of the orange lies something seldom discussed: acidity. Not the kind that puckers your mouth, but the kind that, over time, whispers into the soft tissues of the joints and inflames them without warning. Citric acid, powerful and persistent, doesn't always stop in the stomach. In older adults, where the body's inner filters have grown weary, it can find its way into the bloodstream. There, it becomes a slow irritant, especially for those with arthritis or chronic joint stiffness. The man begins to notice something peculiar. After his morning glass of juice, his knees feel unsettled. Not sharp pain, but a persistent unrest, a stiffness that grows as he sits, a reluctance in the hips when he stands. He walks slower after breakfast than before it. He chalks it up to the cold weather, or perhaps to sleeping wrong. What he doesn't suspect is that his body, wise in its years, is reacting to the very thing he once welcomed each morning. Oranges, especially in juice form, are concentrated acid wrapped in natural sugar. And sugar, as his body has learned, is not what it once was. Blood sugar levels spike more easily. Inflammation flares more frequently. Circulation, already diminished, struggles to clear what no longer serves. The result? A lingering heat behind the knees, swelling that appears by afternoon, feet that feel too tight in familiar shoes. And then there is the fatigue. Not the kind that makes you want to sleep, but the kind that lives in your legs, like wet cloth draped over your bones. You move, but you feel slow. You walk, but not freely. Still, the orange seems harmless. Doctors praise it. Labels say it boosts immunity. How can it betray? But that's the challenge of aging. The rules shift. What once built muscle now might inflame it. What once energized now weighs you down. What once nourished now must be questioned. The man begins to connect the dots. Days without citrus feel smoother. Mornings without juice carry less stiffness. He no longer wakes up bracing for the first step. That glowing orb in the fruit bowl, once a symbol of health, becomes something else, a lesson. And with that lesson, clarity grows. Because it's not about never eating fruit. It's about knowing which fruits honor your current body and which quietly ask it to pay a price. And if even oranges can betray, what of the apple? Crisp, tart, often chosen for its clean sweetness. But within that green skin lies a compound that can sour the comfort of aging limbs. The summer sun once meant ease, barefoot steps in garden grass, a pitcher of cool water sweating on the table, and slices of watermelon, bright red, seed-speckled, carried on paper plates, felt like childhood's reward. For the man, it remains a ritual. When the heat arrives, so does the watermelon. It feels like water. It tastes like relief. But what if that very fruit, so associated with freshness and hydration, is quietly turning ease into effort? Watermelon is over 90% water, yes. But what slips beneath the radar is its glycemic index, astonishingly high for something so light. When a bite of watermelon touches the tongue, sweetness arrives almost instantly. The sugars absorb fast, crashing into the bloodstream like a sudden tide. For the aging body, this is no small disruption. Older cells, slower to respond, falter in the face of that sugar wave. Insulin surges, then drops, and the dance between sugar and hormone grows unsteady. In its wake comes inflammation, silent, systemic, and deeply rooted. Not in the organs, in the legs. The man notices it after lunch. A strange drag in his thighs, a quiet pressure around his knees, a puffiness in the ankles that doesn't recede with rest. He blames the heat, or the long morning walk. Rarely the watermelon. After all, he believes it to be nature's Gatorade. But his body tells a different story. The sugar in watermelon does not ask for permission. It floods. And with each repeated flood, the vessels responsible for nourishing muscles and joints wear down. Circulation becomes sluggish. Less oxygen reaches the legs. Movement slows. And that's not all. Watermelon's sugar is deceptive. Because the fruit is light and airy, people eat more of it than they realize. One slice becomes 2, 3. A bowl disappears during conversation. But the body doesn't register portion size the way taste buds do. Sugar is sugar. Whether from candy or from a sun-ripened melon, it demands processing. The next morning, the man feels it again. A heaviness that wasn't there the year before. A reluctance in his knees. A creaking in the hips that makes him hesitate before standing. It's not agony, it's erosion. And erosion, as every stone mason knows, reshapes slowly but with certainty. Watermelon may refresh the tongue, but it taxes the body. For elders, particularly those managing pre-diabetes, arthritis, or poor circulation, the spikes in blood sugar from watermelon can be especially cruel. The fruit acts like a sugar bomb cloaked in innocence. It isn't about denial, it's about discernment. The man begins to ask questions. Could the food that cools his afternoons be weighing down his mornings? Could light be a lie if it brings with it stiffness and swelling? These questions matter, because to walk freely, to rise without hesitation, to feel the earth beneath your feet and know you belong to it. That is not a luxury in old age. It is your right. And no slice of fruit, no matter how sweet, should quietly steal that from you. But if watermelon can betray with sweetness, what of the fruit that promises strength through immunity? The one poured into glasses every morning, squeezed into bottles and labeled fresh. The one whose scent fills breakfast tables and doctors' offices alike. Its glow hides an acid kiss. And for aging joints, that kiss can wound. The green apple, with its tight, glossy skin and sharp bite, holds a certain pride. It's not soft or indulgent like other fruits. It's crisp, restrained, almost austere. For the man, it has always felt like the smart choice. Lower in sugar, high in fiber, praised by dietitians. It fits neatly into a pocket, onto a breakfast plate, beside a sandwich. It promises simplicity, clarity, and health. But as he takes that first bite, a familiar twinge radiates from his thigh, small but persistent. He pauses, not quite linking the two. Yet, over the weeks, the connection becomes harder to ignore. What makes green apples less sweet in taste is also what makes them more hostile to aging joints. Malic acid. This compound gives the apple its signature sourness, but once inside the body, it can irritate sensitive tissue, particularly in the gut and joints. For younger individuals, this is rarely a problem, but for elders whose digestive linings have thinned and whose joints are already inflamed or swollen, that acid can act like a slow drip of erosion. After his usual afternoon snack, the man begins to feel it. A slight tightness in the knees, a strange cramping in the calves when reclining, a warm ache in the hips that blooms by evening. Small discomforts, easy to dismiss, until they repeat, until they deepen, and then comes the sugar. Despite their tartness, green apples still contain a meaningful dose of natural sugar. For seniors with slower metabolisms, even that subtle sweetness can tip the scale. Blood sugar rises, insulin responds, inflammation flares, and the legs, those once trusty pillars, begin to feel like they are walking against a tide. Some nights it creeps in quietly, a restless sensation in the ankles, the dull pulse of an overused joint. He stretches, he walks, he soaks, but the feeling lingers, like a whisper from within. Something is off. The green apple sits uneaten the next day, and the day after. The tightness loosens, the restlessness recedes. He doesn't need a diagnosis. His body, when listened to, is its own wise physician. It becomes clear now. Fruit, though gifted by nature, is not one size fits all. Age changes the rules of nourishment. What once invigorated may now inflame. What once energized may now exhaust. And yet one fruit remains, a fruit more adored than all the rest. Sweet, soft, tropical, and vibrant. A fruit of joy, of summer, of dessert without guilt. But for those over 60, it may be the most dangerous of all, because beneath its golden flesh lies a storm of sugar, gentle in taste, powerful in effect. It is the last on this list, but perhaps the most deceptive. The mango. And with it comes the final lesson. Mango. The name alone conjures warmth, sun on skin, laughter in the garden, the sweet surrender of summer's embrace. It is the fruit of celebration, of memory, of family. Soft, fragrant, tender. No other fruit is so beloved, so indulgent, so seemingly innocent. But for aging legs, the mango is a quiet undoing. Its flavor disguises its truth, a sugar bomb wrapped in silk. One medium-sized mango can contain up to 45 grams of natural sugar, more than a can of soda. For someone under 30, with a blazing metabolism and a body still forging itself, this may pass unnoticed. But for the older adult, whose insulin response has grown slower, whose circulation is more fragile, and whose joints are whispering from years of faithful service, this sugar is not fuel. It is fire. The man eats half a mango after lunch. The sweetness is comforting, almost meditative. But by evening, his feet feel heavy. A dull pressure begins behind the knees. There's a strange tingling in the toes, like forgotten sparks from an old wire. He drinks water, massages his calves, elevates his feet. Still, the discomfort lingers. The sugar spike from mango sets off a cascade. Insulin rushes, inflammation follows, and the delicate tissues around the ankles, knees, and hips begin to swell. For those with any nerve damage, or even just aging nerves, it adds another layer: burning, prickling, restlessness at night. The man finds himself pacing quietly in the hallway while the world sleeps. Mango doesn't ask for guilt. It's not processed, it's not artificial, it's nature. But nature is not always gentle, especially not with time. The fruit's softness betrays the body's softening edge. The man realizes he eats mango not just for taste, but for memory. His mother once fed him slices while he sat on the porch as a boy. His wife once packed them in containers for picnics. They were joy. They are joy, but joy must be balanced with wisdom. Aging does not mean deprivation. It means discernment. He begins to choose differently. Less mango, more berries, less guessing, more listening. His legs thank him, not with applause, but with movement, with mornings free from pain, with steps that feel trustworthy, with the quiet return of freedom. And here, in this realization, lies the heart of the journey. The 7 fruits, the ones once hailed as heroes, have hidden their costs well. They were never evil, but they are not neutral. For the body past 60, food is no longer just fuel. It is medicine, or it is burden. But the story does not end in avoidance. It ends in rebirth. Fruits still exist that bring healing, that support circulation, that cushion joints and calm inflammation. Berries, avocados, papayas, pears, these are the allies. These are the gentle guides back to strength. And the man? He walks differently now. Not faster, not farther, but freer. He no longer fears the stairs. He no longer groans when rising. He no longer questions his body's loyalty, because now he honors it. There is peace in this. Peace in knowing you are not losing yourself, but returning to yourself. That each decision made in love becomes a brick in the path toward healing. That your legs carry not just weight, but the story of your resilience. In the end, it was never about fruit. It was about listening.